This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. The Harkles have arrived down under, and of course, Meghan is pretending that she's shocked that all of these people at this children's hospital are there just to see her and her husband. This is so disgusting in what this couple is doing by exploiting these sick children. Obviously, they're doing this for the show, but did you know this hospital? This is the hospital that Diana also visited. So there is a purpose to them being there. Like, everything about these two is so contrived, and the fact that this hospital is allowing Harry and Meghan to exploit them is, like, disgusting. These kids don't care about these two. Look at that poor child with Harry. Like, why are the parents allowing them to be exploited like this? This girl doesn't want to be walking around with Meghan. I mean, this is like so pathetic. Why is this woman touching this child, and where is the parent? Why is the parent allowing this creature next to their child? This child knows this woman is a predator and wants nothing to do with her. This is truly pathetic. Why this hospital went along with this is beyond me. Maybe Harry and Meghan gave a small donation. Who knows? But really sad to see how Harry and Meghan are exploiting these sick children to improve their brand. Like, this just makes them look worse. Absolute vultures. That's all I could say. Harry and Meghan are nothing but vultures. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to keep this video short because I'm pretty annoyed right now. Back in February, I updated everyone about the Heritage Foundation's lawsuit against the Department of State. Before I get into this, I want people to understand what this is actually about. You see, back on January 29, 2025, yes, 9 days after Trump got into office, Heritage filed a lawsuit against the Department of State. They did it because the Biden-era State Department completely ignored their FOIA requests that was submitted back in September of 2024. This was after DHS stonewalling and dragging their feet until they produced a completely redacted document. And because they hit a wall with DHS, they turned to the Department of State to get answers. This was never about the immigration forms. It was specifically about the records the State Department now had on Prince Harry, records tied to the visa the State Department issued itself. So just a quick reminder, this case actually started back in last January, and as many of you know, the parties have been filing joint status reports every 60 days since then. And what we've seen over the last year were these small little increments of progress of them identifying thousands of records on Prince Harry to a point where the last joint status report that we did back in February had identified 307 files and almost 2,500 pages of potentially responsive material to be processed. And as it says here, at this point, the department has begun reviewing and processing the documents. It then says the department anticipates being able to make an initial interim production in this case in March and commence rolling productions as available thereafter. And as you can see here, it states the next joint status report, 60 days, would be April 13, 2026, which is today. So now keep in mind, 60 days ago, the Department of State said that they completed their responsiveness, meaning that they've gone through the databases and pulled the records that would be pertinent for this FOIA case, and that now they've begun processing, meaning redacting information, possibly deciding whether or not they could give it to Heritage Foundation, making sure all the legal T's and C's were legit. We've had 307 records that they're focused on, comprised of 2,500 pages. With the commitment essentially saying we expect to send you some documents in March and then continue sending more in batches after that, right? Like, there was no expectation to receive all 307 documents redacted or however they're ready or processing the documents to be given in March, but there was an expectation to get some information in March. Well, fast forward to today, and published was the joint status review. And you're not going to believe this because it pretty much says the same exact thing as the last joint status review, but now things have changed a little bit. Says the department previously anticipated being able to make an initial interim production, in this case in March, and commence rolling productions as available thereafter. The department, however, is still processing a potential first tranche of records and will produce them as soon as possible. Well, hold on a second. A potential first tranche? And will produce them as soon as possible? Like, do you not have an ETA on that? Because in the last joint status review, you pretty much were certain that March was going to be the month where at least a few bits of information was going to be rolling out. Now, they're still reviewing a potential tranche of records on Prince Harry? This scumbag in this country is supposed to be a private citizen. What is there to be mulling over? In any case, says the department will keep the plaintiff updated and reach out to determine a processing schedule moving forward upon release of the first interim set of records. So now there is no time frame on when anybody can expect the first tranche of records on this idiot prince. As you can see here, the next joint status review is another 60 days out, dated June 12th, 2026. As all of you know, I've been doing my very best in trying to remain positive and to stay hopeful that justice was definitely coming for these two. But now, and I do feel disheartened to have to say that I'm not so sure anymore. Now, if you're listening to this and an American, you'll understand why this feels so disappointing. It's especially because we're watching all of this fraud and corruption being exposed and not a damn thing seems to be happening. Like, where are the arrests? Where are people being held accountable for the crimes that have been committed against the American people? That's what I would like to know right now. In this situation with Harry, honestly, the stories of Trump making a deal with King Charles does sound more and more realistic as we see shit like this come out. And given that King Charles is coming here at the end of the month, there probably is something in those files that would sour that trip. I can almost put money on it, especially if indeed those files say what I've been alluding to this whole entire time, that Harry and Meghan lied about Megxit. Harry came over here with a mission, whether it be from the UK government or King Charles himself telling his son to come over here. But remember, in 2020, the whole world was against Donald Trump. Do I think that the royal family knew that Meghan and Harry were going to go rogue in 2021? No, I don't. But I do believe that they had an idea of what they were coming over here to do to help the Biden regime get into power. I do believe that. See, the shitty thing is that probably the reason why nothing is happening to this ginger prick here in the United States is out of respect to the royal family, specifically King Charles, because he's supposed to be sick, right? Now, looking on the positive side of things, at least they didn't close the case out or say that they couldn't turn over documents or they didn't have documents or some other bullshit. It's just a question of, are they going to, dangle the carrot continuously and then give us a trove of information that's all redacted? Well, that's yet to be seen. The other side to this is that what if, and this is just my thought process, what if the Department of State is working in conjunction with the UK Home Office for them to make their decision about Harry's security? Are they waiting for that decision to come back? Because if that does happen, then guess what? None of those files can be released then, saving, face for the UK government, because I guarantee that the UK government has their fingerprints all in those Department of State records under the Biden regime, especially with what they were doing. Or we have this possible angle to consider. What if Trump does know about all the nefarious things that Harry and his bitch wife have been up to here in the United States with the Biden regime? What if he's going to hold it close to his chest and use it as a bargaining chip? I mean, right now, what we're seeing unfold between the relationship of the US and the UK is not good. Pretty much that relationship is in the toilet. And when you look back at how the UK has influenced our 2020 election, our 2024 election, and have been trying to erode our First Amendment rights, yeah, America is not really happy right now with the UK. So, could Trump be holding some cards close to his chest? That's also a possibility. So yeah, with this joint status report, I definitely think something's going on here that's not kosher. Definitely not. There's a reason why the Biden regime dragged their feet and stonewalled the Heritage Foundation at every turn. And there's also a reason why the State Department is now also dragging its feet. Now, hopefully, the State Department's trying to be strategic. I mean, they are going to have to handle this with delicate care if indeed there is something in those files that could cause a diplomatic crisis. You know, we have to take that into consideration here. We are talking about the king's son. But I want to know what you guys have to think about this. Do you see how I'm feeling right now? What do you think's going to happen? Definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.